In this video, I'm going to try for a second time to get the route navigation to work in the Coros Apex. And this time we're going to do it on a bike. 24.93 miles, 10.4 miles per hour on average, and 131 beats per minute on average from the Coros Apex today. And I think that those numbers are pretty good, except for the heart rate, which I always have a hard time with any watch, any brand, getting an accurate heart rate measurement from the wrist. I did have the Polar Grit and the H9 chest strap heart rate monitor on, which gave me slightly different numbers. And the purpose of today's ride, not run, but ride, was to be able to try the route navigation on the Coros Apex. Now, in yesterday's video, I tried to do a run using the route navigation, and for whatever reason, I got no route at all. Even though I had it all loaded correctly, it just didn't give me a route. So this time I thought I'd try another route. This is a run that I've done before, but it's a longer run. It's a 20+ mile run with like over 1,000 feet of elevation gain. So it's not a run I do regularly. It's not like something I can kind of like just rattle off on a moment's notice. So I thought it'd be a good one to take for a ride since I'm not that familiar with it. But first, I do want to go over some disclosures in terms of the equipment. The Coros Apex is a watch that I purchased with my own money. No one sent it to me, but the Polar Grit X and the H9 chest strap are devices that were sent to me by Polar for the purpose of review. However, in either event, no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So disclosures out of the way, let's talk about this ride. So before the ride, what I did was I set up the route in each of the watches, and then this was already in my Grit X watch, but I had to add it to the Coros. And so what I did with that was I was able to take the route that I had built in Komoot, which is the app that you use to load routes into your Grit X. I was able to export, I think, a GPX file or maybe a KML. Either way, I was able to export the data file and then import that directly into the Coros app, and then from the Coros app to the watch. That's the general steps. Then once I was able to start the activity, you have to like tell it I also want to do a route. And then you could start the activity, and I was good to go. And then instantly I was able to see myself as a dot depicted on the screen in relation to the rest of the route, both on the Coros Apex and the Polar Grit X. So things were working just fine. The default though for the Coros seems to be to show you the entire route. So my entire 21 mile route was shown on this little watch face, although it's a 46mm screen, so it's a pretty big watch face, but to put a 21 mile route on that was kind of a lot. So it was showing me like a 5 mile increment scale, so it could show me the whole thing on the watch. So I did have to zoom in, and this is where like the interface, there's only 2 buttons on the Coros Apex. That's where it starts to get really annoying, because you're using like pressing the crown or the digital crown thing, or scrolling with it. and you're using like a combination of those things. And I was on a bike at the time, so that also like kind of complicates things as well. So in order to do that, once you start the activity, you get a new data screen that shows you where you are on the route. And then the first thing that you have to do is you have to like unlock the watch, which is the default is that like auto lock is on. So you have to like really scroll it hard to get it to unlock. And then you press in, and that makes you select that data field or like more options within that data field in terms of the map. And then I could scroll again to zoom in and zoom out. So it was like kind of like a lot of stuff. And I didn't know all of these steps ahead of time. So I was like kind of like trying to figure out these as I'm riding a bike and also holding a selfie stick with a 360 cam on it. So I had a lot going on. So once I was able to zoom it into a scale that I thought was more useful for me in terms of navigating, I was able to use it just fine. The one thing that I didn't seem to get from the route navigation was like kind of like instructions on when to turn. I could tell that I was on the right route or not on the right route for the most part, but it never told me if I was going like the right way, the wrong way. I just felt like, here's the map, here's the route, maybe you're on the right way. That's kind of like how I felt a lot of the time. Yesterday, I had an incident where even though I did have turn-by-turn navigation on the Grid X and on the Coros Apex, I made a wrong turn. I did the same thing here today. Today's route was kind of like a figure 8, and I couldn't remember if I was gonna go over and then up, so basically do the big loop clockwise, or if I was gonna go over a little bit, do the big loop counterclockwise, and then do this smaller loop kind of counterclockwise as well. I couldn't remember. I made a right turn when I should have just gone straight, and I didn't realize it for a good like 2 miles and change. So I went for the wrong direction for 2 miles on the bike. I realized what I'd done mentally, not from any notification on either watch, where this watch should be giving me wrong direction notifications, and I think this one should be too. But I turned it around, went the correct way, and then did the loop as I was supposed to. The one thing that I noticed is I have the bike, you know, I'm holding onto the handlebars of the bike, and so the watch is kind of like facing that way, like the top of the watch is facing out, which I guess is not that different from when you're running. But then when I would look at it, it would kind of like turn because then the watch's direction is turning. So like, I don't know if the compass is like too sensitive and not able to like do the route navigate. It can't tell, it's like not telling when, or like noticing when I'm not using the watch and when I'm switched to like looking at the watch in terms of like, am I lined up with the route or not? And no matter how long I left it kind of like in this facing forward direction, I never felt like, even though I was going straight and the roads out here are very, very straight, and very long, I never felt like it was like showing me going straight directly along the route of the road, if that makes sense. It always looked like my position was off kilter to the direction of the road, and I was just kind of like going like skewed down the street, if that makes sense. It just seemed a little bit off. And so I feel like if this were a situation where I didn't have like one and only one road as the only option, that is a really loud truck. If I was in some sort of like trail system where there are multiple routes that I could have taken, like maybe I take the hard right or the soft right, I think that I'd be really confused as to which route was the correct one. So I have to find a place where there is those kinds of turns. I don't really know of that many in Iowa. I know mostly the roads to run on around here. So we'll do some more testing on that to see if that's really an issue or not, or if it's just something I think might be an issue. But it's something that I noticed already. So for the rest of the ride, I felt like I was doing pretty good in terms of staying on the route. The turn-by-turn notifications turned up pretty good, or for the most part, I feel like I noticed them on the Grid X. I don't think I ever saw any on the Coros Apex, except for at like mile like 24 out of like 24.4 miles today. The way that I ended up inadvertently drawing the route on Komoot, it makes me take like zigzag turn through like a neighborhood rather than going like a big roundabout kind of way to get home. And so I have always kind of left it as a way of testing and making sure like I know if wrong turn notifications are working or not. It kind of, I have like a built-in wrong turn for every run. That wrong turn did show up finally in the Coros Apex. So I know it does it. It is a feature that it has. I just didn't see any in any of my testing for it. And I definitely didn't see any like a turn is coming up notifications from it. So I don't know if it's just like I'm oblivious, because I mean, I did have 2 watches with turn-by-turn navigation on today, and I still took the wrong turn today. So I think that's just a testament of my ability to get lost despite technological and I guess common sense directional navigational aids. So there's that going for me. I think it says more about me than it does about the watches. But I also just think that, like, for turn-by-turn navigation, I think for both of these watches, but especially for the Coros Apex, I would really like to see like a stronger like buzz when a turn is coming up, and then maybe another buzz confirmation when I've gone the right way, and then a more persistent notification when I'm going the wrong way. So those are some things that I'd like to see from both watches, but especially from the Coros Apex. So I did get the route navigation to work. I got turn-by-turn navigation to work correctly. It looks pretty good. I kind of like it. I wish it was giving me a little bit more like notifications and just confirmations in terms of what I should be doing. But for the most part, it does work. So that's that. I'll still be using it and continue testing it for a lot more of my runs as I continue playing around with this watch. So we'll see if my opinions on that change. But after this run, I definitely realized that I do want to turn off the auto lock feature from the digital crown thing that's on this watch, and I do wish that there were more buttons. I thought I could probably be okay with the crown and like just having a back button, but there needs to be more, because here's the thing: at the end of the run or at the end of the ride, I get back and I'm still on the map screen, and to end the activity I have to scroll the wheel all the way to unlock it. Then you can't, if you hit the button to pause, which is normally pushing that digital crown in is what pauses it. If you press that on the map screen, it gives you more map detail. So then after you press it, it doesn't pause the activity at all. It gives you the option to zoom in and zoom out on the map. So then I have to back out of that, and then I have to scroll and get to a screen where there's run data on it. And then on that run data screen, like pace and distance, that kind of thing, then I can pause it, and then I can choose whether to turn off the activity. So I turned off auto lock, so that way I don't have to do that full like unlocking action to unlock it. But something to keep in mind is that when you're using the maps, you're still gonna have to scroll away from the maps screen and get to like a run data screen to be able to pause, resume, or end your activity. So I just wish there were more buttons so I could deal with that a little bit more directly. There should always be a button that like the first time I press it, it pauses. That makes more sense to me. But sometimes, depending on the data screen that you're looking at, that pause button doesn't pause. That's why I think there needs to be more buttons. So more testing will continue on the Coros Apex. Like I was saying, I don't want to do like one big comprehensive review because it gets super long, but I'll let you guys know kind of like my experiences with this and compare it against my current favorite, the Polar Grit X. So we'll get a chance to kind of see both watches, see how they do, how one stacks up against the other, and we'll go and learn about them together. So that's the idea. If you have any questions about that, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I'd love to keep the conversation going down there. Thanks for making it for all the way to the end of the video, everybody. Hope you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?